Hello, guys and gals, and welcome back to the Harvard Classics. The Harvard Classics, this is part 24, by the way. And the Harvard Classics are composed of the Apology, Phaedo, and Credo of Plato, translated by Benjamin Jowett. We've read that one already. The Golden Sayings of Epictetus, translated by Hastings Crossley. We've read that one already. And the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, translated by George Long. We are reading that one currently. This book is edited by Charles W. Elliott, LLD, with introductions and notes. And we're going to go over the copyright information real quick, which it clearly says it is copyright 1980, 1937, and 1907 by Grolier Enterprises Corporation and manufactured in the United States. Again, we have been reading by the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius Antonius. And we are going to continue where we left off. And we were on number 7. Actually, part 2, number 7, actually. So let's continue. Do the things external which fall upon thee distract thee. Give thyself time to learn something new and good, and cease to be whirled around. But then thou must also avoid being carried about in other ways. For those two are triflers who have wearied themselves in life by their activity and yet have no object to which to direct every movement, and in a word, all their thoughts. Number 8. Through not observing what is in the mind of another, a man has seldom been seen to be unhappy. But those who do not observe the movements of their own mind must of a necessity be unhappy. Number 9. This thou must also bear in mind, what is the nature of the whole, and what is my nature, and how this is related to that, and what kind of a part is it of what kind of a whole, and that there is no one who hinders thee from always doing and saying the things which are according to the nature of which thou art a part. Number 10. Theophrastus, in his comparison of bad acts, such as companion as one would make in accordance with the common notions of mankind, says, like a true philosopher, that the offenses which are committed through desire are more blamable than those which are committed through anger. For he who is excited by anger seems to turn away from reason with a certain pain and unconscious contraction. But he who offends through desire being overpowered by pleasure seems to be in a manner more intemperate and more womanish in his offenses. Rightly then, and it is a way worthy of philosophy, he said that the offense which is committed with pleasure is more blamable than that which is committed with pain, and on the whole the one is more like a person who has been first wronged and through pain is compelled to be angry, but the other is moved by his own impulse to do wrong, being carried toward doing something by desire. Number 11. Since it is possible that thou mayst depart from life this very moment, regulate every act and thought accordingly. But to go away from among men, if there are gods, is not a thing to be afraid of. For the gods may not involve thee in evil, but if indeed they do not exist, or if they have no concern about human affairs, what is it to me to live in a universe devoid of gods or devoid of providence? But in truth, they do exist, and they do care for human things, and they have put all the means in man's power to enable him not to fall into real evils. And as to the rest, if there was anything evil, what would have provided for this also, that it should be altogether in a man's power not to fall into it. Now that which does not make a man worse, how can it make a man's life worse? But neither through ignorance nor having the knowledge, but not the power to guard against or correct these things, is it possible that the nature of the universe has overlooked them? Nor is it possible that it has made so great a mistake, either through want of power or want of skill, that good and evil should happen indiscriminately to the good and the bad. But death certainly, and life, honor and dishonor, pain and pleasure, all these things equally happen to good men and bad, being things which make it neither better nor worse. Therefore, they are neither good nor evil. Number 12. How quickly all these things disappear in the universe, the bodies themselves, but in time the remembrance of them. What is the nature of all sensible things, and particularly those which attract with the bait of pleasure, or terrify by pain, or are noised about by vapory fame? How worthless and contemptible and sordid and perishable and dead they are. All this it is the part of the intellectual faculty to observe. To observe, too, who these are, whose opinions and voices give reputation, what death is, and the fact that if a man looks at it in itself, and by the abstractive power of reflection resolves into their parts all the things that present themselves to the imagination. In it he will then consider it to be nothing else than an operation of nature. And if anyone is afraid of an operation of nature, he is a child. This, however, is not only an operation of nature, but it is also a thing which conduces to the purposes of nature. To observe, too, how man comes near to the deity, and by what part of him, and when this part of a man is so disposed. Okay, let's see. Looks like there's a notation here, VI 28, so I'm not sure what that is. 13. Nothing is more wretched than a man who traverses everything in around and pries into things beneath the earth, as the poet says, and seeks by conjecture what is in the minds of his neighbors, without perceiving that it is sufficient to attend to the demon within him and to reverence it sincerely. And reverence of the demon consists in keeping it pure from passion and thoughtlessness and dissatisfaction with what comes from gods and men. For the thing from the gods merit veneration, for their excellence. And the things from men should be dear to us by reason of kinship, and sometimes even in a manner they move our pity by reason of men's ignorance of good and bad. This defect being no less than that which deprives us of the power of distinguishing things that are white and black. Number 14. Though thou shouldst be going to live 3,000 years, and as many times 10,000 years, still remember that no man loses any other life than this which he now lives, nor lives any other than this which he now loses. The longest and the shortest are thus brought to the same, for the present is the same to all, though that which perishes is not the same, and so that which is lost appears to be a mere moment. For a man cannot lose either the past or the future. For what a man has not, how can anyone take this from him? These two things then thou must bear in mind. The one, that all things from eternity are of like forms and come round in a circle. And that makes no difference whether a man shall see the same things during 100 years or 200 or an infinite time. And the second, that the longest liver, and he who will die soonest lose just the same. For the present is the only thing of which a man can be deprived. It is true that this is the only thing which he has, and that a man cannot lose a thing if he has it not. Number 15. Remember that all is opinion. For what was said by the cynic, Monimus, is manifest, and manifest too is the use of what was said, if a man receives what may be got out of it as far as it is true. Number 16, the soul of man does violence to itself. First of all, when it becomes an abscess, and as it were a tumor on the universe, so far as it can. For to be vexed by anything which happens is a separation of ourselves from nature, in some part of which the natures of all other things are contained. In the next place, the soul does violence to itself when it turns away from any man, or even moves towards him with the intention of injuring, such as are the souls of those who are angry. In the third place, the soul does violence to itself when it is overpowered by pleasure or by pain. Fourthly, when it plays a part and does or says anything insincerely and untrue. Fifthly, when it allows any act of its own and any movement to be without an aim, and does anything thoughtless and without considering what it is, it being right that even the smallest thing be done with reference to an end. And the end of rational animals is to follow the reason and the law of the most ancient city and policy. Number 17. Number 17. Of human life, the time is a point, and the substance is in a flux, and the perception dull, and the composition of the whole body subject to putrefaction. And the soul of a whirl, the fortune hard to divine, and fame a thing devoid of judgment. And to say all in a word, everything which belongs to the body is a stream, and what belongs to the soul is a dream and vapor, and life is a warfare and a stranger's sojourn, and after fame is oblivion. What then is that which is able to conduct a man? One thing, though only one, philosophy. But this consists in keeping the demon within man free from violence and unharmed, superior to pains and pleasures, doing nothing without a purpose, nor yet falsely and with hypocrisy, not feeling the need of another man's doing or not doing anything, and besides accepting all that happens and all that is allotted as coming from thence, wherever it is, from whence he himself came, and finally waiting for death, with a cheerful mind, and being nothing else than a dissolution of the elements, of which every life being is compounded. But if there is no harm to the elements themselves, in each continually changing into another, why should a man have any apprehension about the change and dissolution of all the elements? For it is according to nature, and nothing is evil which is according to nature. This is carnuntum. Okay, now we are to part 3, number 1. We ought to consider not only that our life is daily wasting away and a smaller part of it is left, but another thing also must be taken into account, that if a man should live longer, it is quite uncertain whether the understanding will still continue sufficient for the comprehension of things and retain the power of contemplation, which strives to acquire the knowledge of the divine and the human. For if he shall begin to fall into dotage, perspiration and nutrition and imagination and appetite and whatever else there is of kind will not fail, but the power of making use of ourselves and filling up the measure of our duty and clearly separating all appearances, and consider whether a man should now depart from life and whether else of the kind absolutely requires a disciplined reason. All this is already extinguished. We must make haste then, not only because we are daily nearer to death, but also because the conception of things and the understanding of them cease first. Number 2, we ought to observe also that even the things which follow after the things which are produced according to nature contain something pleasing and attractive. For instance, when bread is baked, some parts are split at the surface, and those parts which thus open and have a certain fashion contrary to the purpose of the baker's art are beautiful in a manner, and in a peculiar way excite a desire for eating. And again, figs, which are quite ripe, gape open, and in the ripe olives, the very circumstance of their being near to rottenness adds a peculiar beauty to the fruit. And the ears of corn bending down, and the lion's eyebrows, and the form which flows from the mouth of wild boars, and many other things, though they are far from being beautiful, if a man should examine them severely, still because they are consequent upon the things which are formed by nature, help to adorn them, and they please the mind. So that if a man should have a feeling and deeper insight with respect to the things which are produced in the universe, there is hardly one of those which follow by way of consequence which will not seem to him to be in a manner disposed so as to give pleasure. And so he will see even the real gaping jaw of wild beasts with no less pleasure than those which painters and sculptors show by imitation. And in an old woman and an old man, he will be able to see a certain maturity and comeliness, and the attractive loveliness of young persons. He will be able to look on with chaste eyes, or chasty eyes, and many such things will present themselves, not pleasing to every man, but to him only who has become truly familiar with nature and her works. Hippocrates, after curing many diseases himself, fell sick and died. The Chaldee foretold the deaths of many, and then fate caught them too. Alexander and Pompeius and Caius Caesar, after so often completely destroying whole cities and in battle cutting to pieces many 10,000s of cavalry and infantry, themselves too at last departed from life. Heraclitus, after so many speculations on the conflagration of the universe, was filled with water internally and died smeared all over with mud. And lice destroyed Democritus, and other lice killed Socrates. What means all this? Thou hast embarked, thou hast made the voyage, thou art come to shore. Get out, if indeed to another life. There is no want of gods, nor even there, but if to a state without sensation, thou wilt cease to be held by pains and pleasures, and to be a slave to the vessel which is a much inferior, as that which serves it is superior. For the one is intelligent and deity, the other is earth and corruption. Number 4. Do not waste the remainder of thy life in thoughts about others, when thou dost not refer thy thoughts to some object of common unity. For thou losest the opportunity of doing something else when thou hast such thoughts as these. What is such a person doing, and why, and what is he saying, and what is he thinking of, and what is he contriving, and whatever else of the kind makes us wander away from the observation of our own ruling power. We ought then to check in the series of our thoughts everything that is without a purpose and useless, but most of all the over-curious feeling and the malignant, and a man should use himself to think of those things only about which, if one should suddenly ask, what hast thou now in thy thoughts? With perfect openness thou mightest immediately answer this or that, so that from the words it should be plain that everything in thee is simple and benevolent, and such as benefits a social animal, one that cares not for thoughts about pleasure or sensual enjoyments at all, nor has any rivalry or envy and suspicion or anything else for which thou wouldst blush if thou shouldst say that thou hast in thy mind. For the man who is such and no longer delays being among the number of the best is like a priest and minister of the gods, using to the deity which is planted within him, which makes the man uncontaminated by pleasure, unharmed by any pain, untouched by any insult, feeling no wrong, a fighter in the noblest fight, one who cannot be overpowered by any passion, die deep with justice, accepting with all his soul everything which happens and is assigned to him as his portion, and not often, nor yet without great necessity, and for the general interest, imagining what another says or does or thinks. For it is only what belongs to himself that he makes the matter for his activity, and he constantly thinks of that which is allotted to himself out of the sum total of things, and he makes his own acts fair, and he is persuaded that his own portion is good, for the lot which is assigned to each man is carried along with him and carries him along with it. And he remembers also that every rational animal is his kinsman, and that to care for all men is according to man's nature. And a man should hold on to the opinion, not of all, but of those only who confessedly live according to nature. But as to those who live not so, he always bears in mind what kind of men they are, both at home and from home, both at night and by day, and what they are, and with what men they live an impure life. Accordingly, he does not value at all the praise which comes from such men, since they are not even satisfied with themselves. Number 5, labor not unwillingly, nor without regard to the common interest, nor without due consideration, nor with distraction, nor let studied ornament set off thy thoughts, and be not either a man of many words, or busy about too many things. And further, let the deity which is in thee be the guardian of thy living being, manly and of ripe age, and engaging in matter political, and a Roman, and a ruler, who has taken his post like a man waiting for the signal which summons him from life, and ready to go, having need neither of oath nor any man's testimony. Be cheerful also, and seek not external help, nor the tranquility which others give. A man then must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. It's looking like we are out of time because this next one is super long. We are going to stop it here. We have been reading from the Harvard Classics, specifically the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius Antonius. And if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, want to support me in any way, if you want to join the Discord server, all information will be in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.